My wife's heart medication was actually stolen medication. I found the pills scattered across our bathroom floor at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and that's when my entire world collapsed. Sarah had rushed out 20 minutes earlier for what she called an emergency shift at Mercy General. In her hurry, she'd knocked over her purse, sending its contents spilling everywhere. I was just trying to be helpful, gathering up her scattered belongings, lip balm, car keys, receipts, when I saw them. Dozens of small white tablets, each stamped with Dig 0.25. Even more concerning were the tiny bottles, their pharmacy labels partially torn off but still readable. Digitalis 0.25 milligrams, take as directed for heart failure, patient, Margaret Chen, DOB August 15, 1932. My hand started shaking as I picked up another bottle. Richard Santos, DOB March 22, 1928. Then another. Eleanor Williams, DOB November 7, 1934. 5 bottles total. All elderly patients. All heart medications. All in my wife's purse. For 3 months, Sarah had been telling me she needed these exact pills for her own cardiac condition. Early onset heart failure, she'd said, tears in her eyes during that conversation back in September. It's genetic. My grandmother had it too. I'd held her as she cried, promising we'd get through this together. I'd watched her take these pills every morning with her coffee, telling me how grateful she was that the hospital pharmacy could provide them at a discount through their employee program. I sat on our cold bathroom tiles, staring at Margaret Chen's medication bottle. The prescription date was yesterday. The patient information was clearly visible through the torn label. This wasn't Sarah's medication at all. My wife, the woman I'd loved for 7 years, married for 4, was stealing heart medication from elderly patients. The pieces started falling into place with sickening clarity. Sarah's sudden interest in working extra shifts in the cardiac wing. The mysterious cash deposits she claimed came from overtime pay that never seemed to match her pay stubs. Her new designer purse last month that cost more than her weekly salary. The way she becomes secretive about her phone, taking calls in the other room and speaking in hushed tones about deliveries and usual quantities. I pulled out my phone and searched Digitalis Black Market. The results made my stomach lurch. These medications sold for $15 to $20 per pill on the street to desperate patients who couldn't afford their prescriptions. A single bottle contained 30 pills. Sarah had 5 bottles in her purse. That was potentially $2,250 worth of stolen medication just from tonight. But the money wasn't what made me want to vomit. It was thinking about Margaret Chen, born in 1932, now 92 years old, lying in her hospital bed wondering why her chest felt tight, why breathing had become harder. It was imagining Richard Santos's family getting a phone call at 3 a.m. because his heart had given out when his prescribed medication never made it to his bedside table. How many elderly patients had suffered because Sarah was stealing their life-saving medication? How many had died? I heard Sarah's car pulling into our driveway. In 30 seconds, she'd walked through our front door, probably with some story about her exhausting shift, maybe mentioning how she'd helped save someone's life tonight. The irony was nauseating. I quickly gathered the pills and bottles, my mind racing. I had perhaps 60 seconds to decide what to do with this evidence before my wife, my criminal wife, walked through that door expecting her loving, supportive, completely clueless husband to greet her with a kiss and ask about her day. The front door opened. Honey. I'm home. I shoved the pills and bottles into the bathroom cabinet behind some towels just as Sarah's footsteps echoed down the hallway. My heart was hammering so hard I was certain she'd hear it. In here, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. Just cleaning up the mess from your purse. She appeared in the doorway, still in her scrubs, looking genuinely exhausted. For a split second, seeing her tired face and the way her shoulders sagged, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined everything. This was Sarah. My Sarah who brought home injured birds to nurse back to health. Who cried during commercials about shelter animals. Who'd held my hand through my father's cancer treatments. Oh God, I'm so sorry about that, she said, running a hand through her hair. Tonight was absolutely insane. We lost Mr. Patterson in room 314, and then Mrs. Kumar's daughter was screaming at everyone because her mother's pain wasn't being managed properly. She knelt down beside me, helping gather the remaining items. Did you find everything? I think so, I said, watching her face carefully. Just the usual stuff. Keys, receipts, lip balm. She nodded, then paused. Her eyes darted to the bathroom cabinet, then back to me. You didn't see. I mean, did my medication fall out? I thought I had a bottle in there. The lie came so easily to her. So practiced. No, I didn't see any medication, I said. Maybe it's still in your car. Relief flickered across her features. Yeah, probably. I'll check tomorrow. She stood up, stretching. I need a shower. This shift was brutal. As the water started running, I quietly retrieved the bottles from the cabinet and photographed each label with my phone. Margaret Chen. Richard Santos. Eleanor Williams. Dorothy Fisher. James Kowalski. 5 names. 5 real people whose medications were sitting in my bathroom cabinet instead of keeping their hearts beating steadily through the night. I googled Mercy General's patient directory, a basic search function available to families trying to locate loved ones. All 5 names appeared in the current patient listings. All in the cardiac wing. All elderly. While Sarah showered, I crept to her car and found 2 more bottles under the driver's seat, along with a small notebook filled with what looked like transaction records. MC, 30 pills, $450, delivered Tuesday. RS, 15 pills, $225, pickup Wednesday morning, usual spot. The handwriting was definitely Sarah's, the same careful script she used for grocery lists and birthday cards. The usual spot entry made my blood freeze. This wasn't opportunistic theft. This was organized. Systematic. Sarah had customers. Regular customers who were buying these medications from her on a schedule. I photographed every page of the notebook, my hands trembling as I flipped through entries dating back 4 months. The amounts were staggering. Conservative estimates put her illegal earnings at over $15,000 in the past 4 months alone. Meanwhile, I'd been worried about our credit card balance and suggesting we cut back on eating out. When I heard the shower turn off, I slipped back inside and pretended to be watching TV. Sarah emerged in her robe, looking more relaxed, and curled up next to me on the couch. I forgot to mention, she said casually, I picked up my heart medication refill today. Dr. Martinez wants to increase my dosage. She reached for her purse. I should take tonight's dose before I forget. I watched in horror as she pulled out one of the stolen bottles, Margaret Chen's bottle, and shook out a pill. She was going to take a 92-year-old woman's heart medication right in front of me while lying about her own fictitious condition. Sarah, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk. She froze with the pill halfway to her mouth, and I saw something flicker behind her eyes, a calculation, a quick assessment of threat level. It was an expression I'd never seen on her face before, and it chilled me to the bone. Talk about what? She asked, setting the bottle down slowly on the coffee table. The label was facing away from me, but I could see Margaret Chen's name in my mind as clearly as if it were burned there. Your heart condition, I said, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. I've been thinking, maybe I should come with you to your next appointment with Dr. Martinez. You know, for moral support. The relief that washed over her face was immediate and telling. She thought I was being the concerned, loving husband. She had no idea I knew. Oh, honey, that's sweet, but you don't need to worry, she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. It's really not that serious. Dr. Martinez has everything under control. She picked up the pill again. Besides, you know how boring those appointments are. I watched her swallow Margaret Chen's medication and felt something die inside my chest. Not just because of the theft, but because of how effortlessly she lied to me. How many times had we sat in this exact spot, her head on my shoulder, while she spun elaborate stories about her condition? How many times had I rubbed her back and told her everything would be okay while she was literally poisoning our marriage with deception? Actually, I continued, my mouth dry, I was thinking we should get a second opinion. Heart failure at 31 is really rare. Maybe Johns Hopkins, or... No. The word came out sharper than she intended. She caught herself immediately, softening her tone. I mean, I trust Dr. Martinez completely. He's been treating cardiac patients for 20 years. I nodded like this made perfect sense, but my mind was racing. There was no Dr. Martinez treating Sarah for anything. I handled our insurance claims, and there hadn't been a single cardiology visit in the past year. Every detail of her condition was fiction. My phone buzzed with a text message. Sarah glanced at it reflexively, and I saw her entire body tense when she read the sender's name, Mom. But it wasn't from my mother. The preview text read, still need Wednesday delivery. Same amount as usual. Sarah lunged for my phone, but I was faster. I held it away from her, staring at the message in confusion. The contact said, Mom, but the number wasn't my mother's, I had hers memorized. This was someone else entirely, someone Sarah had deliberately mislabeled in my phone. Why is someone texting me about deliveries? I asked, though the horrible truth was already crystallizing. And why did you change their contact name to Mom? Sarah's face went through a series of expressions, panic, calculation, then resignation. She sat back against the couch cushions, looking suddenly older than her 31 years. I can explain, she said quietly. Then explain why someone is texting my phone about deliveries. Explain why you have medication bottles in your car with other patients' names on them. Explain why there's no record of any Dr. Martinez in our insurance claims. The color drained from her face. You went through my car. I went through our car, Sarah. The car we both make payments on. My voice was rising despite my efforts to stay calm. The car you're apparently using to transport stolen medication. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Because what I think is that you've been stealing heart medication from elderly patients and selling it. What I think is that you've been lying to me for months about having a heart condition. What I think is that people might have died because you took their medication. She whirled around, tears starting to form in her eyes. Nobody died, okay? I'm careful about which medications I redistribute. I only take from patients who have extras, or from supplies that would expire anyway. Redistribute? I stared at her in disbelief. That's what you're calling theft now. You don't understand how broken the system is, she said, her voice taking on a desperate edge. Do you know how many people can't afford their prescriptions? I'm helping people, David. I'm helping patients who would otherwise go without. By charging them $20 a pill. Her face crumpled. She knew I'd seen the notebook. You don't understand, Sarah said, collapsing back onto the couch. The money wasn't supposed to be the point. It started as just helping people. I wanted to believe her. Even now, with all the evidence spread between us like shattered glass, part of me was searching for a way this could all make sense. But the numbers in her notebook told a different story. Helping people by charging Mrs. Chen $450 for her own medication. Margaret Chen's insurance was denied for her refill, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. She was going to go without for 2 weeks while they processed her appeal. 2 weeks, David. Do you know what happens when someone with severe heart failure stops taking Digitalis for 2 weeks? So you stole her hospital doses and sold them back to her. I gave her a week's worth for free, she said defensively. The rest, yes, I charged for. But less than she would have paid at CVS without insurance. My head was spinning. Sarah, that makes it worse, not better. You're stealing from the hospital and manipulating vulnerable patients. She stood up again, agitated. The hospital throws away thousands of dollars in medication every month. Expired stock, discontinued prescriptions, patients who are discharged early. I was just redirecting waste. Margaret Chen's prescription was filled yesterday. That's not expired stock. Sarah fell silent. The grandfather clock in our hallway ticked loudly, marking the seconds while I watched my wife's face cycle through different excuses she couldn't voice. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the contact labeled, Mom, hey, cops were asking questions at the usual spot today. Might want to lay low for a while. The blood drained from Sarah's face as she read the message over my shoulder. The police are already investigating, I said, the words coming out hollow. How long has this been going on? 6 months, she whispered. Maybe 7. 7 months. While I'd been worried about her fake heart condition, bringing her soup when she claimed to feel weak, researching cardiac diets to help her manage her fictitious illness. 7 months of living with a stranger who wore my wife's face. Who else knows? I asked. Nobody at the hospital suspects anything, she said quickly. I'm careful about which supplies I take, and I vary my patterns. That's not what I meant. I held up my phone. Who is this person texting me? How many people are involved? Sarah's shoulders sagged. Just Marcus. He connects me with people who need the medications. People whose insurance won't cover their prescriptions, or who are between jobs, or... Marcus who? You don't know him. Marcus who, Sarah? She hesitated. Marcus Delacroix. He works at the medical supply company that services 3 hospitals in the county. He has access to patient information, knows who's having trouble with insurance approvals. The scope of this was so much larger than I'd imagined. How did you meet him? He approached me. About 8 months ago, he mentioned how many people he saw struggling to afford their medications. He said nurses were in a unique position to help redirect supplies that would otherwise be wasted. He recruited you. She nodded miserably. It felt like the right thing to do at first. The hospital system is so broken, David. You see people choosing between rent and medication, between groceries and staying alive. When Marcus showed me how much medication gets thrown away while people suffer, I thought about the timeline. 8 months ago was right around when Sarah started picking up extra shifts, right when she claimed to need the heart medication herself. The fake diagnosis had been covered from the beginning. The heart condition was never real. No. The word was barely a whisper. Every morning for 3 months, I watched you take those pills. Whose medication were you actually taking? Usually my own stock, she said. I kept some aside. The pills don't hurt healthy people in small doses, and I needed you to see me taking them consistently. I felt sick. You've been taking stolen heart medication for months just to maintain your lie. I take a quarter dose. It's harmless. Sarah, you could have died. Digitalis can cause arrhythmia, especially in people who don't need it. She looked at me with something resembling her old self, vulnerability mixed with stubborn determination. I researched it carefully. I'm not reckless. You're stealing medication from dying patients and taking it yourself to cover up your crimes. That's the definition of reckless. My phone buzzed a 3rd time. Same contact. If they start asking hospital staff questions, burn everything. Seriously. Everything. Sarah read the message and went pale. Marcus is paranoid. The police visit was probably routine. But even as she said it, I could see the fear in her eyes. This was real. The investigation was real. And my wife was about to get arrested. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. Sarah had left for her shift at 6 a.m., kissing my forehead and reminding me to pick up milk on my way home, as if we hadn't spent the previous night dismantling our entire marriage piece by piece. I waited until 8:30 a.m., then drove to Mercy General. The cardiac wing was on the 4th floor. I'd been here before, visiting Sarah during her breaks, but now everything looked different. Every nurse I passed could be complicit. Every medication cart could be missing pills meant for dying patients. I found Margaret Chen's room first. Room 438, just like the address on her prescription bottle. Through the half-open door, I could see a tiny elderly woman propped up in bed, her breathing labored. Her daughter sat beside her, holding her hand. The nurse said your medication was delayed again, the daughter was saying. Something about a pharmacy shortage. But don't worry, Mom. I brought some from home. Margaret Chen nodded weakly. Her lips had a bluish tint that made my chest tighten. I kept walking before they could notice me lurking in the doorway, but I'd seen enough. Margaret Chen's daughter was buying her mother's own medication back from my wife's black market network, not knowing the pharmacy shortage was really Sarah stealing from the hospital supply. Room 441 housed Richard Santos. He appeared to be sleeping, but his wife was arguing with someone on her phone in the hallway. $1,500, she was saying. For 1 month's supply. We don't have $1,500, but what choice do we have? The hospital says they can't guarantee his dosage will be consistent with these shortages. I ducked into a nearby bathroom, my hands shaking. Mrs. Santos was talking about Marcus, had to be. The same Marcus whose texts were coming to my phone. He was charging desperate families inflated prices for medications that Sarah was stealing from their own loved ones. My phone rang. Sarah. Hey honey, she said, sounding artificially cheerful. How are you feeling? Still sick. A little better, I managed. Just resting. Good. Listen, I might be late tonight. We're short-staffed, and there are some inventory discrepancies I need to help sort out. The blood froze in my veins. Inventory discrepancies. Oh, you know how it is. Medications don't match the computer records. Probably just data entry errors, but administration wants everything reconciled. Her voice was steady, but I caught the underlying tension. Anyway, I should go. Love you. After she hung up, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, staring at my phone. The inventory audit wasn't routine, it was targeted. Someone had noticed the missing medications. I scrolled through my recent calls and found the number for Mercy General's main line. After being transferred 3 times, I reached hospital security. This is Tom Bradley, a gruff voice answered. Hi, this is David Walsh. My wife Sarah works in your cardiac unit. I was wondering, is there some kind of investigation happening? She mentioned inventory issues. Long pause. Who did you say you were? David Walsh. Sarah Walsh is my wife. She's a nurse on the 4th floor. Another pause. Mr. Walsh, I think you should come in. Are you available this afternoon? My mouth went dry. Is Sarah in trouble? I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you be here by 2 p.m.? After agreeing to meet him, I drove home in a daze. Sarah's laptop was still on our kitchen table from the night before. She'd left it open to her work email. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. The most recent email was from her supervisor, Patricia Nguyen, sent at 7:45 a.m. Sarah, please see me immediately when you arrive. We need to discuss some concerns that have come to our attention regarding medication handling protocols. I scrolled down. Another email from yesterday evening. All nursing staff are required to attend a mandatory meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. regarding new security procedures for controlled substances. And then, buried in her sent folder, I found something that made my stomach drop. An email Sarah had sent to someone named m.delacroix at medsupplyplus.com 3 days ago, audit scheduled for Thursday. They're focusing on Digitalis specifically. We need to discuss timeline for wrapping things up. The reply, sent within an hour, already working on it. Can you access the original inventory logs from last month? Need to know exactly how much they think is missing. Sarah wasn't just stealing medication. She was helping Marcus cover their tracks by manipulating the hospital's records. This wasn't opportunistic theft anymore, it was fraud, conspiracy, and who knew how many other felonies. I checked my watch, 11:30 a.m. Sarah's mandatory meeting was at 3 p.m. Tom Bradley wanted to see me at 2 p.m. The timing wasn't coincidental. Hospital security was moving today, and somehow they knew to contact me. Maybe they'd been monitoring Sarah's communications. Maybe Marcus had been arrested and given them information. Either way, my wife had about 3.5 hours of freedom left. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom, meeting with S cancelled. Too hot right now. Tell her to stick to her normal routine and act surprised about everything. Marcus was trying to coordinate their story through my phone, still not realizing that I knew everything. But his message told me something crucial. He was planning to let Sarah take the fall alone. I had a choice to make, and I had to make it in the next few hours. I could warn Sarah, give her a chance to run or destroy evidence. Or I could let events unfold naturally and watch my wife get arrested for crimes that could send her to prison for years. But there was a third option forming in my mind. One that might serve justice while protecting Sarah from Marcus's betrayal. I started typing a response to Marcus's text, pretending to be Sarah. I stared at my phone, Marcus's text still glowing on the screen. He thought he was texting Sarah, coordinating their cover story while planning to abandon her. The bastard had no idea he was communicating directly with the husband whose life he'd helped destroy. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Whatever I typed next would determine not just Sarah's fate, but the fate of every patient whose medication had been stolen. Margaret Chen, struggling to breathe in room 438. Richard Santos's wife, emptying their savings to buy back her husband's own pills. I typed, can't meet today. Hospital security called my husband for 2 p.m. meeting. They know something. The response came back within minutes, your husband. How the hell do they even know about him? I replied, not sure. David seemed suspicious last night. Think he might have found something and reported it. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then reappeared. Marcus was panicking, probably trying to figure out how much I knew and whether I'd implicated him. Finally, we need to accelerate timeline. Can you access the pharmacy tonight? We clear out everything valuable and blame the missing inventory on system glitches. My blood ran cold. Marcus wasn't just planning to abandon Sarah, he was asking her to commit one final, massive theft that would destroy any chance she had at a reduced sentence. He wanted her to steal everything she could carry, knowing she'd be caught and charged with the entire operation while he disappeared. I took screenshots of the entire conversation, then drove to Mercy General early for my 2 p.m. meeting with Tom Bradley. Hospital security was located in the basement, down a corridor that smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. Tom Bradley turned out to be a thick-set man in his 50s with tired eyes and a rumpled suit that had seen better days. Mr. Walsh, thank you for coming in. He gestured to a plastic chair across from his cluttered desk. I'll be direct with you. We've been monitoring some irregularities in our cardiac medication inventory, and your wife's access patterns have raised some concerns. I nodded, trying to look appropriately confused and worried. What kind of concerns? Over the past 6 months, there's been a statistically significant discrepancy between ordered Digitalis supplies and what's actually reaching patients. The shortfall coincides with your wife's shift rotations about 70% of the time. Are you saying Sarah is stealing medication? Bradley leaned back in his chair. I'm saying we have questions that need answers. But here's the thing, Mr. Walsh, we received an anonymous tip yesterday suggesting the theft might be part of a larger operation involving external parties. My heart hammered against my ribs. What kind of external parties? Medical supply companies with access to patient insurance information. The tip suggested someone was using that information to target specific patients whose medications could be stolen and resold. He pulled out a file folder. Have you noticed any unusual income in your household? Expensive purchases your wife couldn't normally afford? I thought about Sarah's new purse, the mysterious cash deposits, the designer shoes she bought last month. Some things, yes. She said it was overtime pay. Bradley nodded grimly. Mr. Walsh, I need to ask you directly, has your wife ever brought home medication that wasn't prescribed to her? This was it. The moment I chose between protecting Sarah and protecting her victims. I thought about Margaret Chen's bluish lips, about Mrs. Santos mortgaging her future to buy back her husband's stolen pills. Yes, I said quietly. She told me she had early onset heart failure and needed Digitalis. She's been taking pills every morning for 3 months. Bradley wrote something in his file. Did you ever see the prescription bottles? Last night, her purse fell over. I saw bottles with other people's names on them. Elderly patients. My voice cracked slightly. I didn't want to believe it. Mr. Walsh, I appreciate your honesty. This can't be easy. He closed the file. We're going to need you to make a formal statement, and we may ask you to cooperate with our investigation. What happens to Sarah? That depends on several factors. The scope of the theft, her cooperation with the investigation, whether she's willing to provide information about other participants. He paused. Mr. Walsh, if there are external parties involved, people who recruited or coerced your wife, that could significantly impact how the district attorney's office handles her case. I pulled out my phone and showed him the text conversation with Marcus. This man has been sending messages to my phone, thinking he's communicating with Sarah. He's trying to get her to commit one final theft tonight before running. Bradley's eyes widened as he read through the messages. Jesus Christ. Mr. Walsh, this changes everything. He looked up at me sharply. Did you respond to any of these messages? I pretended to be Sarah. I wanted to see what he was planning. What did he tell you? I showed him Marcus's message about clearing out the pharmacy tonight. Bradley immediately reached for his desk phone. This is Bradley. I need Detective Morrison down here now, and get me a direct line to the DA's office. He covered the phone with his hand. Mr. Walsh, your wife is scheduled to work until 11 tonight. We're going to need your help to make sure she doesn't follow through on this plan. You want me to warn her? I want you to convince her to cooperate with us instead of committing career suicide for someone who's planning to abandon her. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another message from Marcus, change of plans. Too risky tonight. Tell security you don't know anything about missing meds. Act shocked. After this blows over, we'll discuss your exit strategy. I showed the message to Bradley. His expression darkened. Mr. Walsh, this man is coaching your wife to lie to investigators while planning her disposal. She has no idea she's about to become his scapegoat. I stared at Marcus's words, feeling something harden in my chest. He'd recruited Sarah, profited from her crimes, and now he was preparing to sacrifice her to save himself. Meanwhile, elderly patients suffered while their families paid inflated prices for their own stolen medications. What do you need me to do? Bradley leaned forward, his expression grim but determined. We need you to keep communicating with Marcus as if you're Sarah. String him along until we can coordinate arrests for both of them simultaneously. If he realizes we're onto him, he'll disappear and your wife takes the fall for everything. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, actually, might be smart to grab a few bottles tonight. Nothing major. Just enough to cover your personal supply until this audit passes. I showed Bradley the message. He shook his head in disgust. Even now he's trying to get her to incriminate herself further. This guy's a piece of work. Detective Morrison arrived 15 minutes later, a sharp-faced woman with silver-streaked hair who listened to our conversation with increasing alarm. She had me forward all of Marcus's messages to her phone while Bradley pulled up Sarah's work schedule on his computer. Your wife's shift ends at 11, Morrison said, checking her watch. It's 2:45 now. We have about 8 hours to coordinate this properly. She turned to me. Mr. Walsh, I need you to understand something. If your wife walks into that pharmacy tonight and takes even a single pill, we're looking at additional felony charges. Conspiracy, theft, potentially racketeering if we can prove this operation crosses state lines. But if she cooperates? If she cooperates before committing any more crimes, the DA might consider a plea deal. Maybe supervised probation, restitution, loss of her nursing license. If she follows Marcus's instructions. Morrison shrugged grimly. 5 to 10 years, minimum. My phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. Bradley motioned for me to answer, then quickly activated a recording app on his phone. Hey sweetheart, I said, trying to keep my voice normal. How's your day going? Terrible, Sarah said, and I could hear genuine stress in her voice. That inventory meeting is happening right now, and they're asking really specific questions about medication handling procedures. Everyone's freaking out. What kind of questions? About access logs, about who has keys to which supply rooms, about whether we've noticed any irregularities in patient dosing. Her voice dropped to a whisper. David, I think they know something. Patricia keeps looking at me weird, and Tom Bradley from security was lurking around the nurse's station earlier. Bradley raised his eyebrows at hearing his own name. He scribbled on a notepad, she's scared. Good. Use that. Maybe you should come home early, I suggested. If you're not feeling well, you could probably. I can't leave early today. That would look suspicious. Sarah paused. David, if something happens, if there's some kind of misunderstanding about the medication inventory, you need to know that I never meant for anyone to get hurt. My throat tightened. Even now, facing the collapse of her criminal enterprise, Sarah was still thinking about how to protect me from the truth. She had no idea I'd been sitting in hospital security for the past hour planning her arrest. What do you mean, misunderstanding? Nothing. Forget I said anything. Her voice became artificially bright. I should go. This meeting's starting up again. Love you. After she hung up, Morrison reviewed the recording. She's definitely panicking, but she's not confessing to anything specific. We need her to make a clear choice between Marcus and cooperation. Bradley's computer chimed with an email notification. He scanned it quickly, then looked up with a grim expression. Gentlemen, we have a problem. The DA's office just informed me that Marcus Delacroix was arrested 2 hours ago at the Canadian border with a trunk full of stolen medical supplies. My blood ran cold. But he was just texting me 20 minutes ago. Morrison grabbed her phone and called someone. After a brief, tense conversation, she hung up and turned to us with a pale face. Marcus Delacroix has been in federal custody since noon. Someone else has been sending those messages to your phone. The room went dead silent. Detective Morrison, Bradley, and I stared at each other as the implications sank in. If Marcus has been in custody since noon, I said slowly, then who the hell has been texting my phone for the past 3 hours? Morrison was already pulling up Marcus's arrest record on her laptop. He was stopped at the Peace Bridge crossing with $47,000 worth of stolen pharmaceuticals in his vehicle. Been in processing all day. She looked up at me with sharp eyes. Mr. Walsh, I need to see your phone. Now. I handed it over, and she immediately began tracing the message origins. Bradley paced behind his desk, running his hands through his thinning hair. This changes everything, he muttered. If someone else has been coordinating with your wife. My phone buzzed in Morrison's hands. Another message from Mom, security meeting running long. Good sign, means they don't have solid evidence yet. Stick to the story about system glitches. Morrison showed us the screen. Whoever this is, they know about Sarah's meeting timing down to the minute. They're either inside the hospital or they're monitoring communications somehow. A horrible thought occurred to me. What if there are other nurses involved? What if Sarah isn't working alone? Bradley stopped pacing. Jesus. A whole network. He immediately picked up his desk phone. This is Bradley. I need you to pull access logs for every nurse who's worked cardiac rotation in the past 6 months. Cross-reference with the medication discrepancy dates. While he coordinated with his security team, Morrison continued analyzing my phone. These messages are coming from a burner phone using a VPN to mask location. Professional setup. She looked at me gravely. Mr. Walsh, your wife may be in more danger than we realized. What do you mean? If Marcus was just the distribution end, and someone else is running the hospital operation, they might see Sarah as a liability now that there's an investigation. Morrison's expression darkened. Especially if they think she might cooperate with authorities. My stomach lurched. I thought about Sarah on the 4th floor right now, sitting through her security meeting, completely unaware that her criminal partners had been arrested or replaced by someone potentially more dangerous. Bradley hung up his phone with a grim expression. We've got a problem. The access logs show irregularities for 3 nurses, not just Sarah. Jennifer Martinez, Brian Chen, and your wife all show suspicious patterns over the past 4 months. 3 nurses. Morrison whistled low. This is bigger than we thought. My phone buzzed again, new plan. Tonight after your shift, meet at the usual place. Bring in cash payment for this week's delivery. Come alone. Morrison immediately forwarded the message to someone on her team. We're going to trace this location, but Mr. Walsh, I need you to respond. Keep them talking. I typed back, which usual place? Been so stressed about the meeting, can't think straight. The response came quickly, loading dock behind Building C, same as always. Midnight. Bradley pulled up a hospital map on his computer. Building C is our auxiliary storage facility. It's about 200 yards from the main hospital, minimal security coverage. He pointed to a spot on the map. If someone's been coordinating medication theft, that loading dock would be perfect. Easy vehicle access, no cameras. Morrison was already coordinating with her team via radio. We'll have surveillance in place by 11 p.m., tactical units on standby. She turned to me. Mr. Walsh, we're going to need your wife to go to that meeting. Absolutely not, I said immediately. You just said she might be in danger. She's already in danger. If she doesn't show up tonight, whoever's running this operation will know she's compromised. They might run, or worse, they might eliminate the evidence. Morrison's expression was deadly serious. Including human evidence. The weight of her words hit me like a physical blow. Sarah wasn't just facing arrest anymore, she was potentially facing someone who saw her as a threat to their entire operation. Bradley's computer chimed with another email. He read it quickly, his face growing pale. Shit. We just got word from the DEA. They've been tracking a multi-state medical theft ring for 8 months. Marcus Delacroix was small time compared to the main operation. My phone buzzed with one more message, bring Jennifer and Brian tonight. Time to discuss new arrangements now that our distribution friend got careless at the border. I stared at the screen, realizing with growing horror that Sarah was about to walk into a meeting with whoever had been manipulating their entire operation from the shadows. And I was the only one who could warn her. The clock on Bradley's wall read 4:17 p.m. when my phone rang again. Sarah's name flashed on the screen, and Morrison immediately activated her recording app. David? Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Something's wrong. Really wrong. What happened? I asked, catching Morrison's eye. She was already alerting her team via text. Jennifer Martinez didn't show up for her shift today. Her supervisor said she called in sick, but Brian Chen told me he saw her leaving the hospital at 2 a.m. last night with 2 large duffel bags. Sarah's breathing was rapid, panicked. And Brian. Brian's acting really strange. He keeps asking me if I've heard from our friend and whether I think the investigation is serious. My blood ran cold. Jennifer and Brian, the other 2 nurses flagged in the access logs. They were all connected, all part of whatever network had recruited Sarah. Where are you right now? I asked. Supply closet on the 3rd floor. David, I found something in Jennifer's locker. Her voice dropped even lower. She left behind a notebook with patient names, room numbers, and medication schedules. But it's not just cardiac patients, there are surgical patients, cancer patients, people on pain management protocols. Bradley grabbed my arm, his eyes wide. He scribbled frantically on his notepad, pain meds equals federal charges. DEA jurisdiction. Morrison was already on her radio, coordinating with federal agents. The scope of this operation was expanding by the minute. Sarah, I said carefully, you need to bring that notebook to hospital security immediately. I can't. Brian's been watching me all day, and he just texted asking where I am. She paused, and I could hear her moving. David, there's something else. The notebook has dates going back 8 months, but some of the entries are in handwriting I don't recognize. Someone else has been accessing these lockers. My phone buzzed with another message on the Tom, Fred, change of plans. Meet now. Loading dock Building C. Come immediately. I showed the message to Morrison and Bradley. Morrison's face went ashen. They're accelerating the timeline, she said. Something spooked them. Bradley was already coordinating with his security team. We've got units moving toward Building C, but they need at least 10 minutes to get in position. Sarah, I said into the phone, listen to me very carefully. Do not go to Building C. Do not meet with Brian or anyone else. Go directly to Tom Bradley's office in hospital security right now. How do you know about? Sarah stopped mid-sentence. David, how do you know I was supposed to meet someone at Building C? My heart hammered against my ribs. I'd revealed too much. Because I've been getting text messages meant for you, I said. Someone's been using my phone to coordinate with you, thinking they were texting you directly. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. You know, Sarah whispered finally. You know everything. Yes. For how long? Since last night. Since I found the medication bottles. I could hear her crying softly, but there wasn't time for emotional breakdowns. Sarah, whoever's been texting me just moved up the meeting time. They want you at Building C right now. The police think you might be in danger. The police? Her voice shot up an octave. David, what did you do? Morrison gestured frantically for me to keep Sarah on the line while her team coordinated the response. I did what I had to do to protect you, I said. Sarah, Jennifer Martinez is missing. Brian Chen is acting suspicious. Marcus Delacroix was arrested at the Canadian border this afternoon. Whoever's been running this operation is cleaning house, and you might be next. My phone buzzed again. Where are you? Building C, now. The message was different this time, urgent, threatening. Someone was getting desperate. Sarah, I said, are you still there? I'm here. Her voice was hollow, defeated. David, I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. Through the phone, I heard a door opening and Brian Chen's voice. There you are. We need to go. Right now. The line went dead. The silence after Sarah's line went dead was deafening. Morrison was already barking orders into her radio while Bradley pulled up the hospital's internal camera system on his computer. Building C, camera 7, he muttered, frantically clicking through feeds. Come on, come on. The screen flickered to a grainy black and white view of the loading dock. At first it looked empty, but then I saw movement, two figures walking quickly toward a dark sedan parked in the shadows. Is that them? Morrison asked, leaning over Bradley's shoulder. I squinted at the pixelated image. One figure was definitely smaller, feminine. The other was taller, broader, could be Brian Chen. I think so, but I can't be sure. My phone buzzed. Your wife is safe for now. But we need to talk. Just you. Same location. 10 minutes. Morrison grabbed the phone from my hands before I could react. They have her, she said grimly. And now they want you. Like hell, I said, standing up. I'm not walking into whatever trap. Mr. Walsh, sit down. Morrison's voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. This might be our only chance to get Sarah out safely and catch whoever's running this operation. Bradley was still cycling through camera feeds. I've got eyes on 3 vehicles in the Building C area now. 2 sedans and a van that wasn't there 20 minutes ago. Morrison studied the screen, then looked at me with calculating eyes. Mr. Walsh, how much do you love your wife? What kind of question is that? The kind that determines whether she comes home tonight or disappears forever. Morrison pulled out a small device that looked like a hearing aid. We're going to wire you up and send you in there. Absolutely not. I'm not trained for this, I'm not. You're the only person they trust right now, Bradley interrupted. They think you're just a clueless husband who stumbled into their operation. They don't know you've been cooperating with us. My phone buzzed again, 9 minutes. Come alone or Sarah starts paying for your delays. The threat was unmistakable. I thought about Sarah sitting in some van or warehouse, probably terrified, while strangers decided her fate based on my actions. Morrison was already fitting the wire device behind my ear. This will pick up everything within a 20-foot radius. We'll have tactical units positioned around the perimeter, but you need to get them talking before we can move in. What am I supposed to say? Hi, I'm here to rescue my criminal wife, please confess everything. You're going to tell them you want in, Morrison said. Tell them Sarah's arrest is inevitable, but you have access to things they need. Bank accounts, family connections, whatever sounds plausible. Bradley pulled up a personnel file on his computer. Brian Chen's been working here for 6 years, clean record until recently. But look at this, his sister works at Riverside Medical, his brother-in-law is a pharmacy technician at St. Mary's. This could be a family operation. Multiple hospitals, Morrison muttered. Jesus, the scope of this thing. My phone rang instead of buzzing with a text. Unknown number. Answer it, Morrison whispered, activating her recording app. Hello. Mr. Walsh. The voice was electronically disguised, clearly using some kind of voice modifier. Your wife made some poor choices over the past few months. But her biggest mistake was involving you. I didn't know anything until yesterday, I said, following Morrison's earlier coaching. But now that I do know, maybe we can work something out. Silence on the other end. Then, work something out. Sarah's going to be arrested. We both know that. But I have access to her bank accounts, her contacts, her methods. Maybe there's a way I can be useful to your operation instead of a liability. Morrison nodded approvingly, making hand gestures for me to keep talking. Plus, I continued, I work in medical billing. I have access to insurance databases for 3 hospital systems. I know which patients are having coverage issues, which medications are being denied, which families are desperate enough to pay premium prices. Another long pause. Building C. 5 minutes. Come to the loading dock, but don't get out of your car until someone approaches you. The line went dead. Morrison immediately started coordinating with her tactical team while Bradley pulled up a real-time map showing unit positions around Building C. Remember, Morrison said, checking her equipment one final time, your job is to keep them talking until we can identify all the players and confirm Sarah's location. Don't try to be a hero. I nodded, though my hands were shaking as I headed for the door. In 5 minutes, I would drive into a parking lot where armed criminals were holding my wife, pretending to negotiate while federal agents surrounded the building. Everything that happened next would determine whether Sarah came home tonight or whether we both disappeared into whatever network had been operating under Mercy General's nose for months. The drive to Building C took exactly 3 minutes and felt like 3 hours. My hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel as I pulled into the dimly lit parking lot behind the auxiliary storage facility. The wire behind my ear felt like it was broadcasting my heartbeat to the entire tactical team. Two sedans sat in the shadows near the loading dock, just like Bradley had spotted on the security cameras. A white van was parked perpendicular to them, blocking my view of the dock itself. No sign of Sarah or Brian Chin. I parked 20 feet away and waited, engine running, just as instructed. Through my rearview mirror, I could see the faint outline of what I hoped was Morrison's surveillance team positioned near the tree line. A figure emerged from behind the van, tall, wearing scrubs and a surgical mask that covered most of their face. They approached my driver's side window and gestured for me to roll it down. Mr. Walsh. The voice was different from the phone call, no electronic distortion, but muffled by the mask. Female, I thought, though it was hard to tell. Turn off your engine and step out slowly. I complied, my legs unsteady as I stood. Where's Sarah? Safe. For now. The figure kept their distance, staying just out of arm's reach. You said you wanted to make a deal. What exactly are you offering? Information, I said, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Patient data, insurance records, billing schedules. I can tell you which families are most desperate, which medications are being denied coverage, optimal timing for theft without triggering inventory alerts. The masked figure tilted their head, studying me. Your wife said you worked in medical billing. What hospital system? Peninsula Healthcare Network. We process claims for Mercy General, Riverside Medical, and St. Mary's. I was improvising now, mixing truth with lies Morrison and I had rehearsed. I can cross-reference denied claims with current patient admissions in real time. Interesting. The figure pulled out a phone and typed something quickly. But we already have inside access at those facilities. What we need now is expansion into new territories. My blood chilled. This operation was bigger than we'd imagined, and they were actively recruiting for growth. How new? I asked. Virginia. North Carolina. We have distribution networks established, but we need hospital access. The figure stepped closer. Your billing experience could help us identify recruitment targets, nurses with financial problems, pharmacy techs with gambling debts, orderlies supporting sick family members. I thought about Morrison's team listening to every word through my wire. This wasn't just about stolen medication anymore, this was intelligence about a multi-state criminal enterprise. What happened to Marcus Delacroix? I asked, testing how much they knew. Marcus got greedy and careless. Started skimming product, taking unnecessary risks. The figure's voice hardened. We don't tolerate theft from our own operation. The irony was staggering, criminals upset about theft within their theft ring. Is that what happened to Jennifer Martinez? The figure went very still. What do you know about Jennifer? Just that she disappeared yesterday with 2 duffel bags. Sarah was worried. I paused, then took a calculated risk. Are you Jennifer? The silence stretched for 10 seconds before the figure reached up and pulled down the surgical mask, revealing a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and cold eyes I didn't recognize. I'm Dr. Amanda Reeves, she said. Chief of Internal Medicine at Riverside Medical. And you, Mr. Walsh, are going to help us solve a very pressing problem. My mouth went dry. A department chief. This wasn't just nurses and techs stealing pills, this was someone with administrative access, someone who could manipulate records at the highest level. What problem? I managed. Dr. Reeves smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Your wife kept detailed records of all her transactions. Names, dates, amounts, customer information. Very thorough. Very incriminating. She paused. Unfortunately, she also kept records of everyone else's transactions. Including mine. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Sarah hadn't just been stealing medication, she'd been documenting the entire network, probably as insurance or leverage. And now that documentation made her the most dangerous person in the operation. Sarah has evidence against you, I said. Had evidence. We retrieved her records an hour ago. Dr. Reeves pulled out a familiar-looking notebook, Sarah's handwriting visible on the cover. But the problem isn't what she wrote down. The problem is what she might tell federal investigators to save herself. Through my wire, I hoped Morrison's team was getting all of this. A hospital department chief, multi-state operations, federal crimes, this was exactly the kind of intelligence they needed. Where is Sarah? I asked again. Dr. Reeves gestured toward the white van. Waiting to find out whether you're smart enough to help us solve our problem, or whether you're going to become part of it. My phone buzzed with a text message, and Dr. Reeves immediately tensed. Don't answer that, she said sharply. But I'd already glanced at the screen. The message was from Sarah's phone. David, if you're reading this, I'm in the van. They made me unlock my phone. Whatever they're telling you, don't believe them. There are 7 hospitals involved, not 3. Dr. Reeves has been running this for 2 years. Dr. Reeves snatched my phone before I could react fully, but I'd seen enough. Sarah was alive, alert, and still trying to protect me even while being held captive. Your wife is remarkably resourceful, Dr. Reeves said, scrolling through the message. She managed to send that while Brian was distracted. Unfortunately, it confirms that she knows too much about our Virginia operations. The mention of Virginia made my stomach drop. Sarah had been gathering intelligence on the entire network, not just participating in local theft. No wonder they saw her as a threat. What Virginia operations? I asked, hoping Morrison's team was tracking every detail. Riverside Medical has a sister facility in Richmond. We've been using transfer patients to move product across state lines, cancer patients, cardiac patients who need ongoing care during relocation. Dr. Reeves spoke casually, as if discussing the weather. Sarah discovered the interstate component 3 weeks ago when she cross-referenced patient records I thought she couldn't access. My blood ran cold. They weren't just stealing from local patients, they were using seriously ill people as unwitting mules to transport stolen medication across state borders. The federal charges alone would be staggering. How many patients? I asked. In the past 18 months. Perhaps 200 transfers. Each carrying between 30 and 60 pills in their personal medication supplies. She smiled that cold smile again. The beauty is that terminal cancer patients rarely inventory their pills carefully. They're too focused on dying. I felt sick. These people weren't just thieves, they were predators targeting the most vulnerable patients imaginable. A car door slammed somewhere behind the van, and Dr. Reeves immediately pulled out a small pistol from her jacket pocket. That would be Detective Morrison arriving earlier than expected, she said calmly. Your wire transmission was quite clear, Mr. Walsh. My heart stopped. She'd known about the wire the entire time. This was a setup, I breathed. Of course it was. Did you really think we hadn't been monitoring police communications? We knew about the DEA investigation before Marcus even reached the border. Dr. Reeves kept the gun pointed casually in my direction. But you've been very helpful in confirming exactly what evidence they have. Through the darkness, I could see tactical team members moving into position around the parking lot. Red laser dots began appearing on the sides of the van and the surrounding vehicles. Dr. Reeves followed my gaze inside. Such a predictable response. Surround the building, demand surrender, negotiate for hostages. She raised her voice. Detective Morrison, I assume you can hear me. Your tactical positioning is quite obvious. Morrison's voice came through a megaphone from somewhere in the tree line. Dr. Reeves, release the hostages and we can discuss terms. The terms are simple, Dr. Reeves called back. Mr. and Mrs. Walsh are going to walk with me to that sedan. We're going to drive away, and in exactly 24 hours, I'll release them at a location of my choosing. She pressed the gun against my ribs. Any attempt to follow or interfere will result in their immediate execution. The red laser dots multiplied, now covering every visible surface around us. I could see at least 6 tactical officers in position, but none of them had a clear shot that wouldn't risk hitting me. However, Dr. Reeves continued, I'm prepared to offer Detective Morrison something valuable in exchange for safe passage. She pulled out a thick manila envelope from her jacket. Complete records of our operation across 7 hospitals in 4 states. Patient names, medication quantities, staff participants, distribution networks. Everything the DEA needs to dismantle this organization. Morrison's voice crackled through the megaphone, what's your guarantee? My guarantee is that Sarah Walsh documented everything in obsessive detail, and her records will destroy everyone involved except the 3 people walking away tonight. Dr. Reeves smiled coldly. Including federal judges and state legislators who've been purchasing medication for their elderly parents. The implications hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a hospital theft ring, it was a network that reached into the highest levels of state and federal government. And Sarah had evidence that could bring down all of them. The standoff stretched into minutes that felt like hours. Dr. Reeves kept the gun pressed against my ribs while tactical officers maintained their positions in the darkness around us. The red laser dots danced across every surface like deadly fireflies. Dr. Reeves, Morrison's voice crackled through the megaphone, we verified your identity. Dr. Amanda Reeves, Chief of Internal Medicine at Riverside Medical, graduated Johns Hopkins 2003, married to District Attorney Robert Reeves. My blood turned to ice. The DA's wife. No wonder she was confident about walking away from this. Detective Morrison, you're beginning to understand the scope of what you're dealing with, Dr. Reeves called back calmly. My husband has been very helpful in ensuring certain investigations remain limited in scope. A new voice came through the megaphone, deeper, more authoritative. Amanda, this is Agent Sarah Kim, DEA. Your husband is currently in federal custody. His cooperation ended approximately 3 hours ago when we arrested him at your Richmond facility. Dr. Reeves's grip on the pistol tightened, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. You're lying. Robert gave us everything, Amanda. The patient transfer manifests, the medication shipping logs, the offshore accounts in Grand Cayman. Agent Kim's voice was steady, professional. He also told us about the insurance fraud component, billing Medicare for medications that were never delivered to patients. Impossible, Dr. Reeves hissed, but I could hear the doubt creeping into her voice. My phone, still in her other hand, suddenly rang. The screen displayed unknown caller, but Dr. Reeves answered anyway, putting it on speaker. Amanda. The voice was male, strained, familiar from TV news broadcasts. District Attorney Robert Reeves. Amanda, they have everything. The accounts, the patient records, the legislative contacts. You need to surrender now before. Dr. Reeves ended the call, her face pale in the parking lot's dim lighting. Around us, I could see more tactical officers moving into position. The red dots had multiplied to cover every possible angle. The Richmond operation, I said quietly, pieces clicking together in my mind. That's why you needed Sarah's documentation. You weren't just running theft from individual hospitals, you were coordinating transfers between facilities to hide the scope. Dr. Reeves looked at me with something approaching respect. Your wife figured that out faster than we anticipated. When she started cross-referencing patient transfers with medication inventories across multiple states. She shook her head. Sarah Walsh was too smart for her own good. A car door slammed from the direction of the white van, and Brian Chin emerged with his hands raised above his head. Don't shoot, he called out. I want to cooperate. Dr. Reeves said she was just redistributing expired medication. Brian, you idiot, Dr. Reeves muttered, but her attention was divided now between me, the tactical team, and her crumbling operation. Agent Kim's voice returned, Dr. Reeves, Brian Chen is walking toward our position with his hands visible. We're also showing thermal signatures of 2 people in the van behind you. I assume one of them is Sarah Walsh. Sarah and Jennifer Martinez, Dr. Reeves confirmed. Jennifer decided she wanted to confess everything to save her nursing license. Remarkably naive for someone who helped us steal over $200,000 in medication. The numbers were staggering. I thought about Margaret Chen and Richard Santos, about families mortgaging their futures to buy back stolen medication, while these criminals accumulated hundreds of thousands in profit. Amanda, Agent Kim called, your husband also gave us the names of 17 nurses, 8 pharmacy technicians, and 4 other physicians across your network. It's over. Dr. Reeves was quiet for a long moment, her gun still pressed against my ribs but her grip less steady than before. Around us, the tactical positions had shifted, I could see officers closer now, ready to move the moment they had a clear shot. Perhaps, she said finally, it's time to discuss those terms you mentioned. The negotiation that followed felt surreal, Dr. Reeves calmly discussing terms for surrender while holding a gun to my ribs in a hospital parking lot at 9:47 p.m. on what had started as an ordinary Tuesday. I want full immunity for my cooperation, she called out to Agent Kim. Complete testimony about the interstate network, patient transfer protocols, financial structures. Everything. Amanda, you held federal agents at gunpoint and kidnapped 2 civilians, Kim responded through the megaphone. Immunity is off the table. But cooperation will be noted in sentencing recommendations. Dr. Reeves laughed bitterly. Sentencing recommendations. Do you know how many federal judges have elderly parents who couldn't afford their heart medications? How many congressional staffers bought discounted insulin through our network? The scope kept expanding. What had started as Sarah stealing pills from a few cardiac patients had metastasized into a corruption network reaching the highest levels of government. That's exactly why we need your full cooperation, Agent Kim replied. Help us clean this up properly. My phone buzzed with another text, this time from an unknown number. Dr. Reeves, this is Jennifer Martinez. They're offering me witness protection if I testify about the Virginia transfers. I'm sorry, but I have 2 kids to think about. Dr. Reeves read the message and her face hardened. Jennifer always was weak under pressure. She raised her voice toward the van. Jennifer, you realize witness protection won't help you when the nursing board reviews your license. A car door opened, and Jennifer Martinez emerged with her hands raised. Even from a distance, I could see she was crying. I never wanted anyone to get hurt, she called out. You said we were helping people who couldn't afford their medications. We were helping them, Dr. Reeves snapped. We charged 60% less than retail pharmacy prices. For medications we stole from dying patients. Jennifer was walking toward the tactical positions now, still crying. Mrs. Patterson in room 314 went into cardiac arrest because her digitalis doses were inconsistent. Mr. Kowalski's family spent their mortgage payment buying back his own pain medication. The human cost was finally being laid bare. Real names, real consequences. Mrs. Patterson, Sarah had mentioned losing a Mr. Patterson just last night during her fake story about her difficult shift. Jennifer, Agent Kim's voice came again, keep walking toward the sound of my voice. Hands visible. Dr. Reeves watched her former partner surrender, her grip on the pistol loosening slightly. 23 years of medical practice, she muttered, almost to herself. Do you know how many patients I've saved? How many lives I've extended? How many did you kill by stealing their medications? I asked quietly. She looked at me sharply. None. We were careful about which patients. Margaret Chen is 92 years old and can barely breathe because you stole her heart medication, I interrupted, anger overriding fear. Richard Santos's wife is emptying their retirement account to buy back pills you took from his bedside table. Margaret Chen's insurance denied her prescription for 2 weeks, Dr. Reeves shot back. We provided her medication at cost when the system failed her. You provided her medication after you stole it from her hospital supply. The absurdity of arguing healthcare ethics with an armed doctor holding me hostage while federal agents surrounded us wasn't lost on me, but rage was making me reckless. A new voice came from the van, weak, strained, but unmistakably Sarah. David? David, are you okay? My heart jumped. Sarah was conscious, alert, trying to communicate despite whatever restraints Dr. Reeves had used. I'm here, I called back. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Jennifer's gone, and I think I can. Sarah, stay in the vehicle, Dr. Reeves ordered sharply. But her attention was divided between me, the tactical team, and now managing her remaining hostage. Agent Kim's voice crackled again, Dr. Reeves, you now have 1 hostage in an unsecured vehicle and 1 hostage in an open area surrounded by federal agents. Your negotiating position is deteriorating rapidly. Agent Kim was right. Dar. Reeves's grip on both the situation and her pistol was weakening by the minute. Around us, the tactical officers had closed to within 30 feet, their red laser sights creating a constellation of dots across every surface. Sarah, I called toward the van, the notebook you kept, how detailed were your records? Everything, Sarah's voice came back, stronger now. Every transaction, every patient name, every hospital involved. I documented it all because I was scared Marcus would try to blame me for everything. Dr. Reeves's face went pale. Sarah, stop talking. 7 hospitals across 4 states, Sarah continued, ignoring the order. Federal judges buying medication for their parents, congressional staffers getting insulin at cost, pharmaceutical executives purchasing cancer drugs through the network. Her voice grew stronger with each revelation. Dr. Reeves told me we were helping people, but the profit margins were higher than most retail pharmacies. Agent Kim's voice cut through the night. Dr. Reeves, your hostage is now providing testimony that will be admissible in federal court. Release both hostages and we can discuss your cooperation. My cooperation? Dr. Reeves laughed bitterly. Agent Kim, I created detailed medical records showing which patients could safely have their medications delayed or reduced. We weren't monsters, we were healthcare professionals working within acceptable risk parameters. Tell that to Mrs. Patterson's family, Sarah called out from the van. Tell that to the 3 patients who went into cardiac distress because their digitalis doses were inconsistent. I felt Dr. Reeves stiffen beside me. 3 patients. Room 314, 327, and 419 over the past month, Sarah replied. All cardiac patients, all experiencing medication shortages during their stays. I checked their charts after you told me to document everything. The weight of those numbers seemed to hit Dr. Reeves physically. 3 patients. Real people with families, with grandchildren, with lives cut short because their prescribed medications were being sold on the black market. I never. Dr. Reeves's voice trailed off, and for the first time since this confrontation began, she sounded like a person instead of a criminal mastermind. Agent Kim seized the moment. Amanda, your medical oath was to, first, do no harm. How many patients suffered because of this operation? The parking lot fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic and the soft crackle of radio communications between tactical units. Dr. Reeves stood motionless beside me, her pistol wavering. Dr. Reeves, I said quietly, my wife made terrible choices, but she documented everything because she knew it was wrong. She was trying to find a way out. There is no way out, Dr. Reeves whispered. Do you understand the scope of this? Federal judges, state legislators, pharmaceutical executives, they're all implicated in Sarah's records. We can't just surrender and hope for mercy. But you can stop more people from getting hurt, I replied. That has to count for something. A car door slammed from the van's direction, and Sarah emerged with her hands raised, walking slowly toward the tactical positions. Dr. Reeves spun toward her, raising the pistol. Sarah, get back in the vehicle. No. Sarah's voice was steady, resolute. It's over, Dr. Reeves. My husband knows everything. The police have everything. Jennifer's cooperating, Brian's cooperating, and Marcus gave them your Richmond operation before they even arrested you. She took another step forward, still 20 feet from the nearest tactical officer but clearly moving toward surrender. I stole medication from dying patients, Sarah continued, her voice breaking slightly. I lied to my husband for months. I participated in a conspiracy that killed people. But I'm done lying. Dr. Reeves's gun hand was shaking now, the weapon wavering between Sarah and me. Around us, I could see tactical officers adjusting their positions, ready to take a shot the moment they had a clear angle. Sarah, Dr. Reeves said desperately, if you cooperate with them, everyone goes down. Everyone. Do you want to destroy the careers of every nurse who was just trying to help patients afford their medications? I want to stop pretending that what we did was helping anyone except ourselves, Sarah replied, taking another step toward the agents. Margaret Chen almost died because we stole her heart medication. The Kowalski family lost their house buying back pills we took from their father's bedside table. She was fully in the open now, hands raised, tears streaming down her face in the harsh glare of the tactical lights that had suddenly illuminated the entire parking lot. My name is Sarah Walsh, she called out to Agent Kim. I'm a registered nurse at Mercy General Hospital, and I want to confess to conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud, theft of controlled substances, and interstate transportation of stolen pharmaceuticals. The formal confession hung in the air like a physical presence. Dr. Reeves lowered her pistol slowly, staring at Sarah with something approaching admiration. You're braver than I gave you credit for, she said quietly. Then, louder, Agent Kim, Dr. Amanda Reeves requesting to surrender. I'm placing my weapon on the ground and stepping away from Mr. Walsh. The next few minutes passed in a blur of tactical officers, handcuffs, and Miranda rights being read. Dr. Reeves and Sarah were placed in separate federal vehicles while I gave my initial statement to Agent Kim under the harsh glare of portable lights that had transformed the parking lot into something resembling a movie set. Mr. Walsh, Agent Kim said as we wrapped up, your wife's documentation is going to be crucial for prosecuting this network. She kept records that most criminals would have destroyed. What happens to her now? That depends on her cooperation and the extent of her involvement. But Mr. Walsh. Kim paused, studying my face. Your wife saved lives tonight. Her confession and her records are going to prevent this network from expanding into other states. I watched Sarah's transport vehicle disappear into the night, red taillights fading into the distance. My wife, the woman I'd loved for 7 years, married for 4, was heading to federal custody for crimes that could send her to prison for decades. But she'd also found the courage to tell the truth when it mattered most, even knowing it would cost her everything. As I drove home alone at 11:43 p.m., I thought about Margaret Chen in room 438, hopefully sleeping peacefully now that her medication supply was secure. I thought about the Santos family, who would no longer have to choose between mortgage payments and life-saving pills. The woman I'd married was still in there somewhere, underneath all the lies and criminal choices. Tonight, in a parking lot surrounded by federal agents, I'd seen her again. Whether that would be enough to rebuild our shattered marriage remained to be seen. But for the first time since finding those scattered pills on our bathroom floor, I had hoped that the Sarah I'd fallen in love with might eventually find her way home. The reckoning was just beginning, but at least now it could begin with the truth.